we are back, and today we're going to be testing out the thing that you see here is the Slant3D support fin. Yeah, does it really work, or is it just a bunch of hype? Can mere mortals actually use a support pin or fin on their models to get better prints? I don't know. We're going to take a look at that. Anyway, welcome to The Varied Life. I'm Steve, the retired hobby tech guy, American expat living here in Korea, and I do 3D printing. I do some miniature painting. I do some other stuff, build some big swords and cosplay stuff, with more on the way. With that being said, I've got my new pegboard up. If you want to take a look at that, you can see there's my pegboard. It's in a various state of disarray, but with that, what I've been doing is printing out some paint holders. So that way I can end up, as you can see there, we got some cool little paint holders there that I designed in Tinkercad, and I've been printing them out. But the problem is that these little hooks that I have on these things, little hooks, it goes into the pegboard and hangs like that, and at a 40-degree angle, and so the paints go in there and everything is perfect. The problem is it's perfect until we get the supports. So you can see how rough that is. Yeah, those are pretty rough on that bottom there. So it still works. And once I put them into the holes, into the pegboard holes, it'll hold. So there's no problem there, but it's fugly. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to actually we tried out to see if this fin support from Slant3D actually works, and yeah, we actually printed it out. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to go through and just to give you kind of a look at the how rough that is. There's that bottom section, and we supported that with quite interestingly enough, we did a variation of, we used Creality print, we used tree supports on one, we did regular supports on another one, and we still get this ugly looking thing on our print. So what happens with this? Can we still use it? Absolutely. But the problem is that I have to pull out some sandpaper, and we need to sand it, and then it fits. And so yeah, an extra 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, maybe 5 minutes at the most. It's more time that I want to spend, especially if I could print it and actually have it great looking without having to have all of that fugliness that we got there. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take a look at it. Again, remember the fugliness, and we're going to go to Slant3D and we're going to take a look at his little reel that he did to see what he's talking about. And then we'll go into Tinkercad and I'll show you what I did in Tinkercad. Then we'll go to Creality Print and show you what it looks like there, and it finished printing. So we can actually see if this works, or is this just relegated to those professional print farm people that are on YouTube? I don't know. Well, we're going to find out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and we'll get to the desktop here, and there is Slant3D, and we're going to see what he has to say. So
if you're using traditional auto-generated support, it will have a little bit of distance from the part to be removable. So you would end up with these. If you're using traditional auto-generated support, it will have a little bit of distance from the part to be removable. So you would end up with flex and wobble as the part is printed. So you have to use designed support. And the way you design this support is just like this. You create effectively a fin off the part. You can do it at a 45-degree angle because a 45 degrees is the best way to print the part. That way you don't have overhangs that can potentially sag by having a steep area over here, even though it's shallow in the back. From there, you design this fin to be about a 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter spaced parallel to the back of the enclosure or the part that you're trying to print.
Yep.
Then you take sprues and horizontally design them to run and merge into the part. You now have this nice little set of ribs that run up here along this fin, and you have this awesome piece of support, which when it's done, all you have to do is break it off, and it comes clean, and all you have is a few divots that could be sanded down, or you can just live with. It's a very clean way of producing supports. If you're using traditional auto-generated support, it will have a little bit of distance from the part to be removable, so you would end up with flex and wobble.
Yeah, so that's basically what he's talking about is designing a fin to find out and providing that support. Because again, once it's kind of there and it wobbles and you'll see some layer shifting and things like that. I've noticed that on some prints. And it doesn't matter if we ended up with some prints. It doesn't matter if you use regular supports or if you used, the auto supports or tree supports or tree support slim or the hybrid. What's interesting is I always end up with some little boogered up little areas here on the overhangs. Again, a little bit of sanding, 5-10 minutes, and I can get this to work. But will these support fin things work? And that's what we're going to take a look at. So with that, let's go ahead and we'll dive into Tinkercad because that's my speed is Tinkercad. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. And when we take a look at Tinkercad here is an example of that fin. And so what we ended up doing, if we go ahead and break this down, I've already got some fins on some other pieces here that you can see there. And if we look up real close, we can see that there's a little bit of space there. See that? We got that little bit of space there. Again, it's about 1/2 to 1 millimeter. And then we've got that little bit of a bridge there that we can see there. And right there. And it's about every 10 or 12 millimeters is what I ended up putting. So yeah, and here is another example of like the paint that we ended up doing, the paint rack. So this one is a 6 paint rack holder, and what we ended up doing, if we just take a look at that, we made our little fin, and yeah, it just ends up, it turned out pretty good. So we just kind of lined it up there. Now I did do a few extra steps on this. If we kind of notice, you can see how there's like a cutout there. So the thickness of this fin is about 0.8, maybe 1 millimeter. For something this small, I don't need something really thick. So 1 millimeter, we tried that out. And then we took like, I don't know, about 0.2 millimeters off of each side and made it a little bit more, as you can see, thinner. And then we just put it right in the middle. And then we just kind of click that on and make sure we lined it up, and boom, there it is. And then we just replicated that through the rest of these, and yeah, we just kind of put those all together. And here's an example of a final product for the paint rack with the pegboard holes, and where it's all together as one piece. So this would be exported as one STL file. And all of these fins, these support fins, are already there. So yeah, it's definitely a way to do that. So let's take a look at this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So here is our support fin, and basically what I ended up doing is just taking a couple of different pieces, and we're going to replicate this real fast. You got some time. I got some time. If you're interested in this, let's just do it real quick. So we go in Tinkercad, we just basically took something like that, and then we just made it like 10 by 10, 10 by 8, whatever it is, and boom, we'll just put it like that. Let's just go ahead and we'll put this as 1 millimeter. We did something like that. We got our square, we clicked on that, we made that 1, and let's just make this, we'll make it 50. Okay, because that's going to be the size of our fin. And then the distance of our fin, that's 10, 10.5. Let's make that 10. And then we'll do the same thing with our red fin. We'll make this 10. And that is how we got our fin there. So the next thing what we're going to end up doing is we want to take out a little bit of material because we want to have those little supports coming out. So what I ended up doing is taking this out 1 more millimeter, because remember how he was talking about having that distance of about 1/2 to 1 millimeter. Then what I ended up doing is taking this shape here and this is a hole, and so we just kind of put it on there, and we're gonna make this, let's just make this 10 high, and we'll do that. And then there's where we're going to come up with our first little support, our little bridge support. Now he did it where he did it angled. Me, I just went across because, you know, 1 millimeter, a half millimeter, you can get a bridge across there. I don't think you're going to have any problems. This seems like I'm cheating. I'm kind of cutting some corners here. So we go ahead and we do that, and then we'll copy this, and then we'll take the copy and we'll go up, and we'll go up 1 millimeter, and let's just make it half. So we could go down like there, and so we got a little bit of that space there. That'll be enough. And then we'll just go ahead and we'll hit copy again, and it'll repopulate that same distance, and we'll be good to go. So there, now what we can end up doing is we can select all our holes and click on our red fin, and we'll combine those together, and boom, there is our fin with our little bridge supports there. So now what we can end up doing, like let's take, is this one already done? Nope, I don't think this is done. This will be a good one to test it on. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So we've got our model here, and what we want to end up doing is we want to print this, and we want the best condition possible for these little hooks to go into our pegboard. So we'll grab this, and we'll combine these together. We'll union group those, and now we'll bring this up here. Now we're going to have a little bit of a situation because we're going to have to take some material off of here. So what I found is that I will select this, I'll make a copy, and we'll just move that one over there. We'll select this one, and we'll go back to our fin, and what we want to end up doing is adjusting our fin. We'll go down to the bottom right, we'll make it 0.1 millimeters. We'll hit the right arrow, and we'll just move that until we can get that to hit that side, and we're right there. So there it's off, there it's on the model, and then we're just going to go a little bit more. So that way it's connected to the back side of this container like that. So we should be good to go. But the problem is we need to make an adjustment for this curve. So what I found is I'm going to have to get another hole. We're going to get this box here, and we're just going to drag this over here. And what was it going to do? Dun, 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 dun. We'll just take it all the way to there, and we'll just pull this up just a tiny bit right there. And we will actually, I'm kind of flubbing on this a little bit, but we will do this. And we will do that, and we just want to get that little bit of, because basically what we want to do is we just want to have this part here. So we're just going to go ahead and do this, and we should have enough there. So now we'll do this, we'll combine the hole with the box, and again there's a whole reason for that. And then now we can get another box, and we can go through, and we can just make like this. There's probably other ways you could isolate this. And I'm just kind of going through like that. And so now we have our box. We'll select our model. We'll combine those two, and it's a few extra steps. It's not that big of a deal. There's probably easier ways of doing this. And by the way, if you can think of an easier way to do this, feel free to let me know. And what we'll end up doing is we'll just do that. We'll combine those, and so we're just left with this little piece here. There's probably a simpler way to do it. Okay, sue me. But this is going to be pretty important because now we can take our fin and we're going to go back, I don't know, I think we go back, let's go back 2. We'll select that little part and we'll make this a hole, and then we'll combine those two. And we get that little cutout. Now we still have this little piece here that we need to get rid of. So we'll just go ahead and we'll do a quick little thing here. Kind of drag this in. We'll lift this up. And there, now we can do this. Like I said, I'm not the sharpest tool in the drawer, but there is basically our fin, so we're good to go. So now if we take our piece, and let's just do it like this. And because that's like 1 millimeter, we can kind of do this and put it like so. And make sure that this is connected. So again, we should be good to go right there. And boom. Just make sure that that's kind of centered, and it pretty much looks centered right there. So then what I could end up doing is taking this, that is one support fin, we'll copy that. We'll just left arrow over, and we'll zoom in here, and we'll do the same thing. And that's the center. If we hit copy again, and that'll populate it over on this one here, and we have all our support fins. The other thing that I ended up doing on mine was that I added a little bit of an extra, it took out a little bit of an extra piece of material. So if we see that, how that is kind of cut in there, I just cut in there with some other hole work. I'm not going to go through that here, but you could run through and you could do the same thing there. And then once this is all done, then we'll just select all these items, we'll combine them together, and boom, you'll have your support fin. I guess, well, you know what, I might as well go through it. We'll show you how I did it. Or maybe you can get some ideas on how to do it better. To get on this piece here, we want to take off about 0.2 on each side of this. So we could do something like, let's go ahead and we'll do a circle. And we'll make this smaller. And we'll raise this up. We can kind of move this over. And then what we could end up doing is just go 1, 2. And we can see how that cuts in there right there. And we could kind of raise this up a little bit, I think. We could do something like that. And go like that. And I think that would work, just like that. So we've got that little piece that is going to be cut off on that right side. We'll go ahead and copy this. And then we'll shift and right click over. We'll do the same thing. And now we've got that cut right there. And if we select both of the holes and our fin and we combine that together, then what we end up with is that little cutout there. Now it's a little messed up, but basically what we can end up doing now is we can just go through and boom. We barely, did we make it? Did we make it? I think it would have to be like that. So we're pretty close on this. Let's take this and now, so a little bit of finagling here. We'll select both of those. We'll go back and see how we got that. We're good to go. We'll select our fin, we'll merge. And then once that's done, there we've got that support on how it's cut down a little bit. I know, it's kind of crazy. Let me see if I can get it from this angle. So yeah, you can see how it's cut a little bit. So in other words, what that'll end up doing is we'll kind of get the minimal amount of contact onto the model, and that will be less scarring. So that's basically what we're going to look at doing. So like I said, we did this with this here on the same thing. You can see that little cut in on both sides, and we did a pretty decent job on that. So we exported this, and again you can see all right along there. We exported this as an STL, and then what we ended up doing is we put it into Creality Print. Creality Print, this was the old model. Remember how we had the boogered up little ends there that you can see? Yeah, a little boogered up. But we're going to go to Creality Print, and I'll show you what we did there. So there, boom. So previously, like I said, on this model, I did a number of them. But I used like tree supports, I used regular auto supports, tree slim, hybrid. I wasn't getting real good posts on there. So with what we ended up doing, as we can see here, there's exactly what we ended up doing. So I know it's horrible. But yeah, you can see that we do have those fins and those supports there, and how it is cut in, and it's part of the actual model. And we slice this up, and with that we didn't use any supports. So when we went to our support tab, boom, no supports. Now this is printed at 0.2 layer height with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle. 3 wall loops, 3% density. We did gyroid infill for this. Again, it's just a paint rack. It's, you know, not going to hold up some serious weight, and no supports. So if we previewed this, and you need to make sure that you look at the preview of this, and what we ended up seeing is that right there. Let me see if I can get this to where it's. And the interesting thing is, look at that. We see a tiny bit of blue there. That blue means that there's a little bit of an overhang there. So the more blue that you have will show more of an overhang, and you'll need support. But we basically got rid of everything on there. And the way that we did that was by doing a recommendation by a guy named Ferrithus, and you can see that the layer lines are squished together. So what we ended up doing is using the variable layer height. So if we click on the model and we go up to the top here and we hit variable layer height, we adjusted this down, and we get tighter layers, and then it minimizes or reduces the amount of blue overhang color that we got. That's what it comes down to. So we sliced all this thing up, and boom, that's what we end up having. And if we take a look at this, when we slice it, and we'll go down, and we can see, yeah, we just got that tiny little bit there. Look at that. And that is in contact with our model. We've got that little tiny single strand. Isn't that amazing? And it goes through, everything's connected, and we will see how that goes. So with this plate here, what did this come out to? 103 grams, 103 grams of filament, $2.06 for one of these, and it took, 4 hours and 2 minutes. So now what we're going to end up doing, I printed this, and we're going to take a look at this and see if this actually works, to see if what Slant3D really is true, or if he's selling wolf tickets. So what we have our K2 Plus cam. Boom, there it is. No, we're not doing that there. We printed that out earlier, but here it is here, and the print is finished. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this off the plate. We'll bring it here, and we'll take a look, and we'll see if there's a big difference between the original way of doing it or doing it with the support fin. So, DJ CCC says rotate the model 45 degrees. I could do that. Let's take a look at that. But I wanted that flat surface. I could do it and rotate it 45 degrees, but then I would have less contact on. So basically it would be sitting at an angle like this, and I probably wouldn't even need many supports. You know, you're going to get these holes, and if you go too far, you're going to need supports here. So I haven't had much luck like balancing it on the razor's edge. So I wanted to do it flat so we get some good surfaces on the front, the top, and here. And then we'll just do those little fins and we'll see how that turns out. So on some items, like when Slant3D was doing like that cover, what was that in there? It kind of looked like a cover that would go on a box or a container, and he had it up at 45 degrees. And then he did his fin in kind of like a triangle, and then he had the little support bridging on there, and that was enough in a wider base, and that was able to give the support that he needed and get really good quality on that part. Should also be noted, if you go back and you look at that on his video, let's see if we can take a look at that. Let's go back and we'll see. I think he's got fuzzy skin on there. So the fuzzy skin is also going to hide. Look at that, there it is. So he's got the fuzzy skin on there. So that's going to hide some of the marks that you're going to get from those support bridges that are going along that 45-degree angle. So yeah, I mean, if I was going to do fuzzy skin, that would be a great way to do that. But I think it's a little bit different. Again, I wanted to have that bottom piece there, and I think that is going to work out okay. But we're going to find out, because I'm going to go get that thing, and we will find out what that actually looks like. So stand by. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to go get it. I've got the wireless mic, so you'll be able to hear me. And you'll be able to see there as we go into the print room. And I'll move our little camera out of the way so we can see what's going on. And again, we're good to go. And we'll try to get this off. There we go. Look at that. The fins printed out perfectly, as did the rest of the item. And so we'll bring this in and we'll take a look and see what this looks like. And see if we get some better quality, because that's what it's all about. We want to have better quality on our supports here and on the model itself. So and boom. So we got a little bit of brim on there. Probably didn't need the brim, but oh well. And what we can take a look at is there is our supports. Matter of fact, you know what we can do? We can go to this camera view and we'll take a look and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Well, let's go up here. And then we'll do this, because this camera's got a little bit better when it comes to focusing. And let's see if we can take a look at that. So, focus, look at those supports. And if we look at that, look at how nice those are. If we can get that to focus. We can take a look at that. Nice. So, now the thing is, remember we have those, we had that reduced amount of area, so we can see how that popped off. And oh yes, look at that. see if we can focus. Focus. Come on, focus, please. Please focus. There we go. Oh, seriously. There we go. And you can see how nice and clean that is. And I just had to use my fingernail. I'm not going to have to do any sanding. That is super, super nice. And we can see that that just comes off. And what I did notice is I didn't even have to do this all the way towards the top. I could have cut this off a little bit more. Matter of fact, let me get a little something to point with. So when we're taking a look at this, I probably could have taken off this little piece here because this would have been good enough, but I would rather be a little bit more safe than sorry. But again, notice how that just comes right off like that. Let's see if we can get that to focus. There we go. And boom, there it is. And there we have our piece, which is looking pretty darn nice. So yeah, I am digging it. I am digging it, folks. So apparently things are working out. Slant3D was right. So with this, I can just go ahead. And this is, you're going to have to make different fins for different models. And also depending, I think, on the height that you're going to use. So like this one, the fin was basically 1 millimeter thick. But if I was going to do a much taller one, then what I could end up doing is making a thicker one. And I think we would be good to go. And yeah, this has turned out pretty nice. So, yeah, nice noise. Let's go ahead and we'll get this. We might do, well, let's make it easy on ourselves. We'll do that. We'll do that. Just get that little piece there. So I could even make, I think, that little area just a little bit thinner. How we kind of went up with the thickness of the support, the fin, and then we came in and had that little bit. I think I could make that even just a little bit smaller. And yeah, I think we would be good to go. So this certainly beats having to go through and having to sand everything, that's for sure. And we definitely got a lot better quality. So I would do this with my fingernails, but I don't want to break my fingernail. I've done that once before. And there's also times where I was working with some stuff. I was using my fingernails and a piece broke off with some support, and it went in between my finger and the nail, kind of like a torture thing. Yeah, that wasn't a fun one either. So, yeah, but this looks really nice compared to what we had before. And then now what we could end up doing is we can see how this works out. Now Venom says, looks pretty good. Yeah, it does. Good time to test out the cutter. I'm working on that. That's going to be the next project. Let's dip back over to our desk here, and we will see if this ends up working. So we can end up, just kind of move this a little bit, kind of adjust. Oops. And this is my new pegboard. So that was the whole reason of doing this. And so now Should be able to just put this in here. Don't tell me my measurements are off on this. Seriously? It worked on all these. There we go. And boom. So there we go. So it ends up, we have our paint rack on there, which is pretty nice. So yeah, good to go, good to go. Now these other ones that I did, they're all boogered up on here. So I would have to go through, I'm gonna have to sand these to get these to get in there. But yeah, I'm gonna have to, because these are all kind of buggered up here. So definitely the fins are the way to go. And definitely a lot cleaner. We get better looking model. So yeah, I would say the Slant3D fin support actually ends up working. Alrighty. So that's what we got going on. So it seems to work out pretty well. The fin support from Slant3D, and he's talking about that. I'm going to go back and watch this video again to see if I can get any more little tips and tricks on how to do that and try to maximize my little support fin. So thanks and shout out goes out to Slant3D because it's something that actually works. And if you make a model and you make the supports and you do the support fin on there, then you don't have to worry about, oh, I need to go through and I need to, you know, am I going to do tree supports or auto supports, or am I going to do manual supports? You know, I could just go through here and make this and be done with it. So remember how we were going to take this a little bit, and we could probably take one of these and we could go just a little bit more. So we have that there. That's probably would be better. So we have minimal contact area onto the model, and then, yeah, we'll combine all that together. And then once that is done with Tinkercad, then hang with me. I'm getting there. We'll make sure that that is in the middle, which it looks like it is. We'll hit copy. Go ahead and shift and go right. And as long as we keep this selected and it's the same distance, and again, we want it right there, we're good to go. And we hit the copy again, it'll remember the distance that it went the first time and it'll go that same distance again. So again, we'll do that, and we could just take a look and verify that it's good to go. And yes, we have perfection. And there we've got our supports. Now remember on his fin, he had these little bridges going at like a 45-degree angle or something like that. So you could do the same thing. Let's just kind of take a look at this, and I'll show you what we could end up doing. So let's say we've got our our little support fin, the basic fin that is, it's going to take a little bit. So we got our support fin, and he had those at like a 45-degree angle. What I could end up doing is just taking a little box. I'll just make it 1 millimeter, and we could shrink that down, and we could even go down. I think we could probably even take this 0.8. Because again, remember we're using 0.2. We could probably take this down and make it even smaller. I don't know, 0.8, 0.6. make that a little bit smaller, and then we could make this. Let's just make this, we'll do it 5, like that. And we could bring this over to our model. We could bring this up, and if we take a look, and then we could put this at like a 45-degree angle and kind of bring it out like that. And we could copy that, and then we could go up about 10. We hit copy again, it would repopulate, and there would be our 45-degree angle. So if you have like a bigger, we'll combine that together, and let's go ahead and we'll get rid of these. Well, let's just do it this way. We'll cheat. Can we cheat? Hell yeah, we can cheat. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. So now we've got our support there. Our support fin is all good to go. And we'll bring this over here. And since we've got the same, and now what we want to do is, again, we want to have this at about a millimeter away, so we could go in like so. And we've got that little bit of area there. We can combine the two circles together, or two holes with our fin. We'll union group that together, Control G, and boom. As soon as the computer, the algorithm does its thing, and boom, there you go. So we're good to go. So we've got a little bit of maybe a little bit of an extra contact point there. But what we can end up doing, I'll just shoot this in 1, 2, and maybe bring this down just a hair, like so. And we're good to go. And I think we're in the middle, and then we could hit a copy, shift, do the same thing here. We'll zoom in, just kind of eyeball it to make sure it's in the center, which looks about right there. Hit copy again, it'll populate over, and I think we're good to go. And that would be our support fin. So there we've got the little 45-degree angle support. So it's a little bit bigger. So again, it's not something that's crazy hard to do. And if I can do it, hell, you can do it too. So then we could just combine all this together. And boom, there we have our support fins that will easily tear off. This would tear off a little bit easier than the ones that we did, as I think those were a little bit thicker. So again, a little bit of experimentation that you could end up doing. We could take this and go a little bit. I don't know. Could we go a little bit smaller? We could do something like that and try that. And then we could go through and do the same thing. And we would have a really small amount of material that would actually be in contact with the model. So yeah, and we could kind of clean up the circle and take it up a little bit and make it a little bit nicer. But for a quick little tutorial on how to make this, yeah, this could work out really well. So boom, do that, and you're good to go. So there's your support fin. Seems to work out. Boom. There it is. So definitely hats off to Slant3D. I'm going to be checking out his video. His video is in the description box. So if you want to take a look at that, click on it, see what it is. I think he's even got a longer one, so I'll be checking that out as well. Because again, It's going to be, your fin size is going to be dependent on the model that you use, but it seems that the little fins that we made here on ours, boom, worked perfectly. Now with this, we had this angle here, which we didn't need any supports. So that's why I didn't take this all the way into, you know, the corner there. I just wanted to support it here. And when that printed out great. So there you have it. And I got a few other items that, like this is going to be a tape measure holder that we're going to have there. This one here, we've already put the fins on this one. And that is our caliper holder. So I got some calipers, so we'll be able to check that out. And then I also have a larger one. And this one is actually a pencil holder, or a little container for paintbrushes, pencils, pens, whatever it is. And we could do something like that. And then this one here is going to be a remote holder, but I need to test to see if this is actually going to work out to fit out my little remote here. So yeah, there it is. A lot of stuff you can end up doing. Great idea. I mean, I really love this in the fact that you can do your supports when you design your model and you're done. Do your little test print. Again, if you wanted to test this out, you wouldn't have to test out the whole model. You could just do something. Somebody was asking me about that. Let's just kind of quickly go over this. So we'll select all these, we'll copy, we'll make another one. And if we just want to check this out and do a test piece, I don't want to print out the entire thing. I could go ahead and we could grab a hole. We could do this and we could just get enough like that. So we got just enough going on there. And we could do that. We grab both our shapes and we could grab our piece there, combine all those together. Union group, Control G if you're into the keyboard stuff. And then what this will end up doing is getting rid of a bunch of that material. And again, it's processing slowly. That'll give you time to like the video. And that'll also give me a time to get a swig of some beverage. Which, by the way, it is Lunar New Year. So that's coming up. And with this, we don't even need all of this here. So what we could end up doing is just kind of doing this, bring this up, and select both of those, or we could just end up left click, hold and draw, and everything that's within that box, we can combine that all together, and that will group that. It'll get rid of all of this material here. So then when we test our support fin, we could print that out. We don't have to waste a bunch of material, which is good. Nothing would be worse than printing out something, putting and doing a test piece of something that's this big and then printing it out 3 or 4 hours and realizing, oh, it didn't work. Yeah, so we want to minimize the amount of material, and that is what we could end up printing right there. And if you wanted to even, we don't really need this material from here up. So what we could end up doing is we could do this. Bring this down a little bit, and we'll bring this up because we just need to know that it's going to print there. So we could just bring it right there. And so again, we're going to minimize the amount of filament that we're going to use. It's going to go through and do its thing. And then we have a quick little test piece that we could do to save filament, see if our support fin works for the model that we're doing. And again, I think you would agree, depending on the model would be dependent on what type of support fin that you're going to make. But since this one, so yeah, you could do something like this. And yeah, to see if that works. So yeah. And the other thing you could end up doing, kind of like what I ended up doing here, is that you could have, like in Tinkercad or something like this, you could make some basic supports and just end up having them already set. So like for this one, we could just go like that. We could get rid of some of this stuff here. And, oh, oops, I didn't want to do that. Oops, seriously. It's going to take a little bit. The joys of live streaming in Tinkercad. Okay, let's get rid of that. That's what I want to get rid of, these little red things if you wanted to get rid of those. And then we could do this. And we'll click off of here. We'll go back to this. Boom. And go back to that. And yeah, so we could just kind of run through and just have like a basic template. And so we could get rid of that. And that would be our template for our support fin. So if we wanted to, what we could end up doing is if we needed a longer one like that, and let's say if we wanted it at like a 45 degree, what was that one? 0.8. So we could do something like this. And again, we got our little support fin there. I just grabbed that piece and it works. So you could probably do something a little bit smaller. You know, you could do something like that, and I think you'd be good to go. You just need enough to have a good base, and yeah, we could center that up and it'd be good. Something like that. And then if you had something where you needed like a 45 degree angle, you could get a box and end up kind of doing the same thing. So let's see how that would look like. Now this is going to around there, and if we go at 45 degree angle right there, and we could kind of go like that. So we could do that. And again, there's just lots of different ways that you could manufacture or build this fin to work with pieces on 45 degree angles, straight up and down, whatever it is. You know, with this one, so for example, we'll just go ahead and we'll do this, and then you could take like your boxes here. We could just kind of rotate those down like so. And we could do like that. And then you could remove that material there. We could combine those two. And again, you could go through and make your little bridges up on that 45 degree angle. Like right up there. We can go ahead and bring this up. And if you're wondering, it's like, well, how do we get this here? Here's a secret. Go up here. Let's see if we can get it to where it's actually right here. This is going to be your work plane tool. So if I click this and I put it right there, that's going to be the work plane. So now this piece, I can hit D and it's going to stay right on that plane right there. So then what I could end up doing is just kind of sliding this down like so, and boom. And then I could do another one, and it'll slide right along that work plane. And we could do something like that. We hit our work plane tool, we'll go back, and then we could just grab all of this, group it together, and boom, there is our fin that we made at a 45 degree angle. So yeah, a little bit of playing around that you could end up doing with this, but it ends up that it actually works. So there you go. It works. Check out Slant3D. Definitely hats off to him. That thing works. I'm going to end up printing out more because they actually work. Maybe I'll do an adjustment. I don't know. I think we're good the way we are. And I need to print out let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. This will be 5. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So I need 5, 10. So I need 11 more. I need to print 11 more of these for my pegboard thing there. So yeah, we got a little bit of work to do. Anyway, with that being said, yeah, apparently the support fin works. So we're going to go ahead and we'll leave it at that. The obligatory outro, if we take here, you can contact me, officialthevariedlife@gmail.com. Always answer my emails within 1 or 2 days usually. A bunch of people bought me coffee. You can do that too. Link in the description box. But don't do that. The very best thing that you could end up doing is liking the video, subscribing to the channel so you can check out some of the other cool stuff that we have. Okay. And whether you do that or not, I'm still going to be making videos and 3D printing and resin and FDM and painting miniatures and having fun as I'm retired here in Korea. So it's all, either way, it's all good. Okay. With that, hopefully everybody will have a good Lunar New Year. That's what we're going to have up here tomorrow in Korea. And I know most Western countries don't do that, but just have a good weekend then. And we'll see you in the next video. All right. Peace. Good stuff. Good stuff. Fins are good.